What's up, and welcome back to Nowstalgia Pod, giving you your weekly look at what's going on in pop culture. My name is Pat Sheehan, joined by my trusty co-host Dave Martin Swagger. Dave, what's going on, man?
It's hot out here again, like a broken record.
Yeah, I think it's going to be like this for the rest of our lives, unfortunately, because this is just
Yes.
the current reality we live in. But you know what else is hot? The content streets. We
Oh
got
yeah.
a couple movies to talk about, big movies, I'd say. A couple of big albums to talk about as well, and some big news out of San Diego Comic Con. So if you want to be catching all this heat right when it drops, hit that subscribe on youtube.com/slash nostalgia pod or go to our Twitter at nostalgia pod and follow our link tree to follow the podcast any way that you want to. Dave, we're going to start in San Diego this past weekend. Comic Con finally came. If I feel like we're always kind of like leading up to it, and like it's just like, oh, it's here. Obviously, it is this time of year every year, but it just feels ever present. Like, what's the next news? When's Marvel going to drop this? And it
Right.
does feel like Marvel has co-opted Comic Con at this point. Like, it's just about the Marvel announcements, right?
This time it was, yeah, they don't go every year, and kind of surprising that they did go this year because this is a year for D23, the Disney specific event. And I think that's a big thing in general across industries where people can do their own events and control their own messaging and don't necessarily need to participate in some of these more institutional events, traditional media you know, uh, apparatuses. Nonetheless, they're there, going doing Hall H after doing an animation presentation the day before, and definitely was the biggest news out of San Diego Comic Con, which is the biggest Comic Con for this kind of news, and definitely, it's funny because there was so much fanfare, so much attention as the news was trickling out, but so much of it really wasn't news at all until the very end when they announced two new Avengers movies. But for
Yeah,
the most part, I wasn't too surprised with this, and I'm curious to see if this is like the part one of the announcements this year, and there's anything following this at D23. Maybe D23 is more granular, which is like casting for say the Fantastic Four, who's directing Fantastic Four, stuff like that, or maybe they go even further than this. I'm not sure, but you know, the dates they gave us, the titles they gave us, changed some titles.
titles, titles.
2024, which is a year and a half away, still pretty barren on the release calendar for Marvel. Obviously, they have claimed dates. But we don't know what that stuff is. This is not has hadn't to this point been their strategy to keep things closer to the vest, but it feels like they're doing that with the movies, or maybe just because the TV is so ever present in their phases. It's like they feel like they've released a lot of news and information about future projects, but to me, I just don't value the TV in that way until proven otherwise.
Yeah, I was actually just reflecting on how hard they're really trying to make the TV a thing because one of the big announcements of
Mhm.
phase 5 and 6 is that Kang is going to be the like big bad for this next like
Right.
multiverse series and
The multiverse
saga.
saga is our new saga.
And if you haven't watched the Marvel TV shows, specifically Loki, you don't even know who Kang is at this point.
Right.
And it's like I guess that's you can just watch the movies and just wait till you see him in Ant-Man and the Wasp, whatever,
Three.
yeah,
Yeah.
3 that's coming up in I believe it's 2023 February.
Yeah, that's
But
that's the next one. The first one of next year. Yeah.
it's like, man, they're really just trying to make it so you have to consume everything, just giving these little crumbs to like make sense of the things to come. And I don't know.
Hmm.
It's,
Yeah.
I can't get excited for She-Hulk. I'm sorry, I just can't.
Right. Well, and to this point, you didn't really need to watch WandaVision to understand Doctor Strange too. And I'm not so sure you need to watch Loki to understand how Kang works. They're gonna do some more work in the movies for the average fan, average viewer. I have no doubt about that. So the essentialness, is
Right.
open question. It's the connectivity, which was so novel, so uh, give people such a sense of investment through that Infinity Saga. We haven't really felt anything setting up Kang and this multiverse saga through this phase 4, which we now know is ending. at the end of this year with Black Panther 2. Basically, a whole one of their phases that didn't really seem to push any of that grander MCU storytelling forward at all, which is not necessarily a problem. I like things being non connected. It's just kind of funny the way they frame all this stuff, you know? Um, and in terms of any of the other news, you know, you got the Daredevil series officially confirmed coming in 2024, but we knew Charlie Cox as Daredevil was coming back after seeing him in No Way Home, after hearing he was going to be in Echo, the Hawkeye spinoff, and Vincent D'Onofrio showing up in Hawkeye, reprising his role as Kingpin. So, like, it's not really surprising, you know?
No.
Um, Thunderbolts movie was already there's real reporting about the director of that film, so that's not that shocking. I think that has interesting potential as a Suicide Squad esque Marvel movie in terms of the bad guys, the villains, the anti-heroes being your stars in that, such as Wyatt Russell's U.S. agent character, and perhaps Florence Pugh is in there. Who knows? You know, they have options, but that is at least some interesting potential, I suppose. But did you find it kind of interesting that these Avengers movies are both coming out in the same year as of right now, both coming out in 2025? Infinity War and Endgame, of course, were May and May, year back to back years. But to have both of them come out in the span of like 7 months, doesn't that seem kind of odd? I don't know. Like from a money making standpoint, you could definitely maximize things, but regardless, like I don't know. Like they're like, oh, we don't have anything left to fill in from a storytelling perspective. We might as well just finish this 2 part like event crossover movie. I don't know. That raised my eyebrow.
Yeah, I definitely thought that was interesting, especially having Secret Wars, the second of the two Avengers movies that's
Mm.
coming out in 2025, coming a year after the Fantastic Four drops in November of 2024. You know, so there's a lot of like stuff to fill in in the next 3 years before we get there. Kind of crazy that we're talking about movies that are going to be coming out in 3 years from now. And I mean, I would be really surprised if these dates are solid dates. You know, I think they're putting them out there to get excitement, to kind of give people the sense that there's this plan. But I can't imagine that we're going to be seeing both of those in 2025. We'll probably get one. One will probably get pushed back to the following May.
Right.
Just kind of the way it works.
Yep. Yeah. I mean, at the end of the day, like I said, a lot of titles, title changes, dates, date confirmations, things like that. At the end of the day, this Marvel Cinematic Universe, Kevin Feige, San Diego Comic Con panel at Hall H only confirmed 2 movies that we had no idea existed, and 1 series that we kind of knew existed: Daredevil and the 2 Avengers movies. If you want to give him a third movie credit for Thunderbolts because it wasn't officially announced, fine. But those are the only 4 things that weren't previously officially announced. Kind of wild, right? We're talking about stuff in 2025 from now till then, and there was actually only 4 new things across movies and TV. It felt like there was so much fanfare. Then when you actually think about it, there wasn't actually that much information. So, like I said, D23. I don't think we're gonna get like the X-Men blow up about whatever they're gonna do at X-Men. That's probably just still far off, and we're not gonna hear that anytime soon. But it just feels like D23. They'll talk about. Man, they probably won't talk about Spider-Man though because of Sony. So I don't know what they'll talk about. Like we know
Yeah,
Shang-Chi 2's in development, but we had not heard nothing about that.
I,
Deadpool 3, no signs of that either. So I don't know.
I would, if I had to bet money on the big announcement at D23, it's probably going to be the casting for Fantastic Four,
Yeah.
if anything, and then maybe a couple other like casting tidbits. Maybe they'll give some directors who are going to be taking on things. I mean, it's Secret Wars is like very very interesting to me, only because the runtime for Endgame and Infinity War was already like pushing it. We're like talking 3 hour movies that I was happy to sit through, incredibly satisfying, but they're 3 hour movies. Secret War, with all the characters and all the different multiverse, timelines that are going to be
Yep.
interceding in that, that's going to be a fucking crazy project to tie everything in, give everything the time it
Yeah.
needs. We could be talking 3 hours plus. So
Yeah. I have to imagine they're in talks with the Russo brothers to come back to make those
have to be.
movies. And we'll talk about them later with The Gray Man, which just came out
Mhm.
on Netflix. They got their fill. did some non-Marvel properties titles, original stuff more or less. And now they're like, all right, come back, take a new bag from us, and make this fucking work because we don't know who else to ask. That's kind of what
Yeah.
I think about it. I just quick note: we finally got the Black Panther 2 show. I think it looks awesome. Can't wait for that. Ryan Coogler, that is that guy. And officially, we
Yeah.
know that Namor is in fact in that movie. That was kind of suggested, although not truly reported at credible outlets. Now it's official. That's exciting. Um, Other than that, though, yeah, I don't think there's a whole lot more to think about. Oh, there's so many. We know about so many TV shows, man. We already
Yeah.
know about all this shit.
Yeah, I think the only I agree. Wakanda Forever looks great. My main takeaway from that was I could never have guessed a Kendrick Lamar and Bob Marley mashup would work that well, but got me hyped, man. That all right with
That's right.
we got I think they both are called all right, or I forget the Bob Marley song name, but yeah, awesome mashup. Looking forward to that. But I think that wraps it up for San Diego Comic Con. Let's move on to Lil Uzi Vert, who we've we haven't talked about in a few years now.
Yeah.
Last time we were talking about him was his team up with Future, right? The
N-
Pluto and Baby Pluto.
No. It was after that. It was Eternal Take.
Oh,
The
sorry, I had him flipped. I
Yeah,
had him
yeah.
flipped.
Eternal Take. If people might forget, that came out the last weekend of the pre-pandemic
Yeah.
times.
Oh, I remember.
Yeah, a surprise drop at that because it was widely hyped and anticipated, and then kind of came out of nowhere, which was very exciting. And for me, I had that on my top 10 albums of 2020. I really liked it. Been an Uzi fan for some time. Uzi's been in our lives for a long time at this point too, and keeping up the trend of not really actually releasing all that much music all that often. So when you do get something from him, I think it's exciting to hear what he's doing because he is one of the more interesting artists in that trap space. And we have this red and white EP, which also has myriad quirks about its release. Because if you go on Spotify at this time of recording, it is a 5-track EP. However, if you go on SoundCloud, where he originally released it like into the night as he was hyping it up on social media, it actually has I think 6 other tracks. Is it
I think
S-
so. Yeah, and he's been dropping him as
Lucy's?
singles, kind of on Spotify. Is how they kind of come up.
That's correct. Yeah, one, two, three, four. Yeah, so 6 other tracks, which are on Spotify. You can still listen to them there, but they're all individual Lucy's. Seems like a distribution issue. They'll probably sort this out, and it'll eventually be in all in one thing on Spotify. But right now, you have to find that on SoundCloud to get it all in one thing. Either way, you get this new project from Uzi, which is not the one he'd been hyping up, which is called the Pink Tape, which he says is coming out. Looking forward to that still. But this red and white EP, for what we got, whether you listen to just the 5 tracks, you listen to everything out there all at once, I actually think it's right in line with some of the best qualities that Uzi delivers in terms of energy, quirks in his performance, and just bringing some kind of unique character to this type of music.
Yeah.
Where it honestly met my expectations. I thought there was a lot of fun stuff on here.
Yeah, there's definitely a lot of fun stuff. I think it was a bit more hit and miss for me, but the songs that hit, I thought really hit. Like for me, Glock in My Purse and Final Fantasy really stood out as just two absolute banger tracks. A couple of the ones before on the 5 song EP, Cigarette and For Fun, were a bit more miss for me. I
Mhm.
didn't really like those ones as much, but yeah, wrapping up that 5 track one with the Glock in My Purse and Final Fantasy was great. And of the Lucy's, I thought Hitting My Shoulder was pretty good.
Yeah,
So yeah, I mean, I was pretty pleased, especially because I wasn't expecting to get something
right.
like this from him. So I'll take what I can get.
Yeah, I think that's kind of whether it's intentional on his and his team's part or not. That's kind of the appeal. It's like, oh, new Uzi music. Oh, it's pretty
Yeah.
good. How exciting, you know? Uh, yeah, I agree on Final Fantasy for sure. I thought that was just the energy of that is awesome. But honestly, the song would be a amazing Square Enix marketing for the next Final
Mm.
Fantasy game. Just the stuff he says. Final Fantasy, this a new life. Final Fantasy, that's a sex pill. Like there's just some funny ass shit he's talking about. I like that one a lot. Glock in My Purse, though, I think has a few interesting things about it. He's just kind of funny with his one-liners, like he's just saying weird things about like the
Yeah.
semantics of like that's a backpack, it's not a purse,
Right.
stuff like that. It's really funny. But then later on, towards the end of the song, he talks about his dad making assumptions about I believe his sexuality due to the way he was dressing growing
Mhm.
up. And it's like, I can't help but think of hearing that line as Uzi has recently decided to go by they them pronouns as well.
Mhm.
So something he definitely thinks about, and he's always someone who's marched the beat of his own drum and how he presents himself out in the world. Lest we forget, recently he had a diamond mounted on his
Yes.
forehead, so he's a one of one. We know this. I thought cigarette. I did enjoy his flow on that. He made some kind of sometimes like he just like does digressions with his lines where
Mhm.
it's like they're almost like non sequiturs, but he's like saying like weird things or like presenting these like funny observations and like this. Sometimes it's nonsensical, but sometimes I just laugh. Uh,
Yeah.
Also from a style wise, it's a hit, which I didn't like too much, but it is notable that that is very much in like the rage, like modern day, whole lot of red Playboy Cardi mold,
Mm.
in terms of the genre. Not something Uzi has really dabbled in all that much. And then he throws in a normal verse later. But I was like, I wonder if he's gonna go down the Cardi lane. Who's to say? But yeah, and also in terms of the Lucy's, I like Space Cadet as well. I thought that was pretty catchy.
Yeah, that was another one that I really liked a lot too. Yeah, I mean, I think Uzi just continues to be a very singular type of artist, and I think it's always nice to see him pop up, whether that's how they want it to be or not. It's always exciting. So check out
Right.
Red and White, the EP, and those Lucy's as well. We'll be putting one or two on our Nostalgia Best of 2022 playlist. But Dave, let's move forward to Flo Milli dropping her newest album. You still here, ho? This past Wednesday, and a lot of places are saying this is her like first proper debut album.
Correct.
Um, Ho, why is you here in 2020? To me, is like the first time I was really like introduced to her,
Yeah. The debut mixtape.
and obviously, I think in my mind that's her debut, but
Sure.
people are gonna use the semantics of what's a mixtape nowadays. I think not only does this continue the things that made her great on Ho, why is you here, but
Yeah.
it actually elevates a lot of it. And I was
Mhm.
really impressed. The first half of this album, I think, is really really exciting with a lot of tone switch ups and beat like uniqueness, but then the second half started to feel a little bit samey to me, and so I
Uh-huh.
found myself losing a little bit of interest. But I was really pleased with this.
Yeah, I think that's right. It's more polished and expensive
Yeah,
sounding, appearing, but also not completely polished. She's not a final product yet,
no,
which is totally cool. Obviously, she hasn't been at this all that long. Someone who came into where she is now due to genuine TikTok success during the early days of TikTok, or at least the version of TikTok that no longer exists anyway. And yeah, I mean, in terms of the debut tape, which we liked a lot when it came out in 2020, I mean, some people liked it, I think, a little more than us because Rolling Stone put it on their top 500 best hip hop albums of all time, which I think is a bit of a take. I like it a
yeah,
lot, but I don't know how you can really justify that tape's like place in hip hop.
no,
Um, that's not Flo Milli's fault. She didn't put herself on that list, so don't take it the wrong way. But that was a funny note, I think, with that list, which that list has a lot of things going on with it too. That's hardly the most egregious thing on there. Um, so yeah, you have this debut album, which kind of came out of nowhere. She had like some loose singles recently, relatively recently, like Roaring Twenties, which popped up on here as a bonus track, and I think she released one other song like in the last week or two. But I wasn't actually expecting this coming this soon. Nonetheless, I definitely agree that it, especially in the beginning, I think there's some really kind of like the song structures are just a bit more advanced now where like her signature flow, she switches it up more on this. At the end of the day, she can feel a little samey, like a samey like filler Flo Milli track, but you kind of know what that sounds like now. You kind of know her
Mhm.
like most familiar flow to her, probably her most comfortable way to rap, but she doesn't always do that, and sometimes those songs can like really bubble up and sound quite appealing. uh I do think it's interesting that probably the most talked about song to this point, which is about towards the end actually, would be Big Steppa, which has a wild ass beat, and Flo
Mhm.
Milli really sounds great on it. And then you look it up, you're like, oh wait, this is a Dr. Luke beat. What's going on with that?
Yeah,
But it's a good song.
yeah, yeah. It's hard to sometimes sit with the fact that bad people can make good art. But
Yeah.
yeah, definitely tough. But yeah, I agree. I think that beat is pretty great, and I think that song in general is probably one of my favorites in the back half. In that first half, though, I thought that first three song run or four song run, Come Outside, Bedtime, Hottie, and Conceited, actually
Mm.
even PBC, I thought were all really, really strong and really like varying, right? Like Bedtime has a little bit of like a, I don't even know, like a Middle Eastern, almost like get your freak on type feel to it in a sense. But then a couple of these are just like thumpers, right?
Yeah.
Like Conceited has that like almost like grimy, like kind of just like spindly feel to it. PBC is an absolute thumper. Like really love that. I just was really impressed with this first run, and then like you
Mm.
said, that second half you kind of get into more of the like, oh, this is a Flo Milli track, and it's just kind of like a regular like mid level Flo Milli track, but still. I think she's elevated herself to the point where even when it's a filler track like that, there's still some interesting moments you can find.
Right. Well, I think something that's nice about the music she's made to this point is she really always keeps it high energy. You know,
Yeah,
whether it's some she's more serious or it's really light, really fun, just stunting, whatever it is. The energy, the banger quality or banger nature is often present. So yeah, I think it doesn't necessarily change my opinion of Flo Milli, but it doesn't, I'm still enthusiastic about her and looking forward to hearing more music from her. This is truly like that first like really properly incubated like major label rap album from her. So um in a sense it's like just more confirmation that there's more good stuff to come. I don't see how you could think anything else. I kind of wanted more from Payday with Rico.
I was
Um
gonna say
that's not their first
disappointing.
song together either, but I've never really loved any of their collaborations. You'd think they would kind of be two peas in a pod because they're both very unique personalities, but also do really high energy rap. Um, and maybe Rico could bring something even a bit more atypical and abnormal out of Flo Milli. One would hope, but it doesn't. It didn't really seem to work out there.
Yeah, I agree. Just real quick, I usually skip through intros and outros and skits nowadays, unless it's really like a album I want to like get the understanding of why. Having New York from I Love New York do the outro really caught my attention. It just
Yeah,
made me
and the
laugh.
intro.
Thought that was pretty awesome. So, shout out to her. But yeah, Flo Milli, I think an artist that we continue to monitor on the rise. But you mentioned Rico Nasty, who also dropped a new project this weekend. Her first one since Nightmare Vacation,
Hmm.
Las Ruinas.
Yes.
Man, I've listened to this a couple of times because I really was just like taken aback by this.
Mm,
Enrico Nasty continues to be an artist that I think she's hard to pin down exactly like what lane she's in or what she's trying to accomplish or what
yeah.
she wants to accomplish. And I think that's makes her really interesting and really awesome. I found this to be an incredibly up and down project where when it hit, I was like, wow, this is fucking next level shit. And when it didn't hit, I found it to be just incredibly dull. And so I think that that's kind of like Rico's MO for these albums, right? Like she
Mm.
has songs that just really are like, wow, this is incredible. And then songs where you're just like, pretty mid.
Yeah, I think at the end of the day, she is so unique as a rapper, and she's always been authentic like this whole time getting to this point that I do really find myself rooting for her. Um, this is officially her eighth mixtape. She said it herself on Twitter.
Mhm.
Her first project following up the debut album, Nightmare Vacation, end of 2020. So it's been a little bit. She'd been hyping up a mixtape called RX since then. I'm not sure if Las Ruinas is what became of RX or they're two separate things. Not really sure. But yeah, I definitely wasn't expecting this much like genre and like tonal variety and range on this. She's done all kinds of sounds already,
Yeah.
but usually she kind of hones into like a genre lane on a project, you know, at least the last few projects anyway.
Mhm.
I think what most took me with this was I was expecting it to be kind of more like black punk and like Rico bringing some kind of like punk, like rock 2022 s rock stylings to her hip hop because it would fit her aesthetic, it would fit her energy. It would actually feel pretty authentic. It wouldn't really feel like trend chasing if she did it. But she didn't do that all that much on this, or at least not as much as I expected. Next thing I know, there's like EDM on here. And not the EDM I expected to hear if there was any either. I would have expected to hear lots of hyper pop a la the Dylan Brady produced iPhone off Nightmare Vacation, a song I really love,
Hmm.
was on my top 10 that year. But even though Gex is here on a great song,
Yeah.
Gots to Get Paid,
Oh
the
yeah.
EDM I do hear on this is much more traditional, like looping like trance, and there's a genuine marshmallow feature here, which seemed like something she really wanted because this is a mixtape. Atlantic didn't really invest in one of these like it would have for the album. So she really wanted to make a song with Mello, I guess. I don't know. Uh,
I do have to say this is like the first Marshmello song I've listened to, and I was like, wow, this actually goes pretty hard. Like, I
Doesn't
didn't
sound
hate
like
it.
one of his songs. That's why.
No, that's it. That's true. Yeah, I agree. I was definitely surprised at what we did get in the EDM sphere. Like you mentioned, "Gots to Get Paid." I think that run from 1 on 5 through "Blow Me" is like
Yeah.
by far the like strongest part of this album. Black Punk an early standout, and then she kind of hits this like softer. I don't even really know what she's going for in the second half to the
Right.
end of the album,
I
but it
mean,
really,
Easy has acoustic guitars,
yeah,
which I don't think I've ever heard her do
it's
before.
almost like an X, like she's going like an Tentacion direction
Yeah.
with this
Right.
sound, which is like varying in terms of success. Like "Focus on Me," I thought was really like a great love song, almost kind of like Love off Kendrick Lamar's "Damn," like kind
Right.
of that
Sure.
sort of standout. But then you get "Easy," "Into the Dark," and "Chicken Nugget," which are all sort of in that same realm. And I'm like, okay, I got enough of this. I want to go back to the
Yeah.
badass Rico at this point. And I just want to say real quick, like her styling on the album, if you're watching on YouTube, you can see in my background, she really looks like Eve's Tumor a lot in this. And like there's
Sure.
definitely some like rock and like hip hop like vibes blending there. So I would love to see them collaborate on some music moving forward. But
Yeah.
yeah, she's definitely trying for something here.
Yeah. Well, in between Nightmare Vacation and now, infamously, Rico was opening up for Playboy Cardi on the King Vamp tour, and she caught a lot of abuse opening up over a few shows from Cardi fans in attendance, and she was like really depressed and not having a good time, which is really disappointing for many levels. And and also didn't really do much to publicly support her, which was not good to see at all. I have to figure like if you listen to the lyrics, that like back half, that back little chunk of songs to end Las Ruinas. I think that's what she's getting at there, and like her mind space, and she seems to be in a much better place now. And
Mhm.
I wasn't actually expecting to get a full project this soon, given where she had been at,
Yeah.
publicly and personally. But I think that's what she's getting at there. So like I can like, I therapy catharsis for her. That's cool. Not music I'm actually gonna go back to.
Mhm.
Um, Gots to Get Paid, I think, is the best song here because it's classic Rico rapping. It's like very reminiscent of probably her most famous style to this point, which
Oh
is
yeah.
all her stuff with Kenny Beats, made famous by Smack a Bitch, which is her biggest song to this point. And it's a Gex song. Both Dylan Brady and Laura Less are there on production and co-writing. They aren't doing like the traditional Gex hyperpop you think of.
No.
They're a bit more reined in on the production there. I didn't think it was them until I looked it up. But yeah, I think that's the stuff I want most from Rico as a performer because she's just so good at like bringing out her rage
Mhm.
into her rapping, you know. And I think there's other hints of that style throughout some of these performances, like on "Blow Me" a little bit when that beat
Yeah.
drops in. It's all over. I agree with you on 1 on 5 as well. But yeah, I think "Got to Get Paid" is just that's like the ideal Rico song to me.
You can almost like see her bouncing around on stage and like screaming the lyrics to that song when
Yeah.
you're listening to it. "Got to Get Paid" was the clear highlight to me. That and "Blow Me" I thought were like the two that really stood out. "Blow Me" is so interesting. When I was listening to this, I was almost like, she's making songs that could be in like Blade or something like that, just
Mm,
like this like dark
stay tuned.
vampires type vibe. And like "Blow Me" is like the exact like feeling for that. Or like I could have seen Matt Reeves like using some version of this in the Batman for that really like grimy Gotham feel to it.
Sure.
And And I think the chorus on Blow Me is so fucking catchy. And it's
Mhm.
like so dirty and like sick and twisted, but like I
Yeah.
really, really love it. And I agree. I think this is what I want to see from Rico is her like channeling that rage and that intensity and that fire that she has into her music, but in varying ways. And I think
Yeah.
Blow Me and Gots Get Paid are the exact examples of that. Was there any other like moments on this that you really liked or really
Yeah, I
wanted
did have one moment that stood out to me on Jungle, Rico Nasty remix, the song with Fred again.
Mhm.
You eventually get to that point. And there's this huge like drum and bass drop. It's like a big EDM song, right?
Yeah.
And then at the point, there's like this like part where the vocals are going like go 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 go,
Mhm.
and it's like the tempo that it's at. It just immediately brought me back to A-Track's Heads Will Roll Yeah Yeah Yeah's remix that
Yeah.
was famously in like Project X and stuff like that. And I think that would actually like for DJing, free tip would be like a perfect transition from the go 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 right into like the classic like refrain in the
Mhm.
Heads Will Roll remix. I feel like that would sound perfect.
Yeah,
So
that dun, 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 yeah,
yeah,
that's perfect. Yeah, and I honestly was like taken aback by that, especially being kind of like right in the middle of the album. So
yeah,
this is 17 tracks, but then when Rico's verse comes in, I was like, oh, this is fucking sick. Like, and that's the thing is like when she's really giving that intensity, it really works. I do think like Focus on Me gives me some hope that Rico, who's only 25, is going to be
mhm,
able to like elevate and bring in different elements of her personality into her music in a successful way. Because Focus on Me, I think, is really a wonderful love song. But I just think using that sort of element more sparingly or thoughtfully. But obviously, this being a mixtape, she probably is just trying to get these tracks out and see what
mm,
works, see what doesn't. So
right.
I love this. And Rico's such an interesting artist. It's hard not to root for, in my opinion. So
I agree.
why don't we move on from Rico, but staying in the hip hop realm? A guy you just saw recently, Dave, Joey Badass, finally dropping that album. I guess he got that sample cleared, huh?
That's right. Joey Badass's third album, 2000, has finally come out about, gosh, what is it, 4 weeks, 5 weeks since the original date, which
Something like that.
conspicuously was the date that Drake last minute claimed for Honestly Nevermind. He says it was sample issues. He said it wasn't Drake when I saw him live on the 1999 2000 tour recently. Regardless, we waited 5 years. We can wait a few more weeks. And
True.
we did. And Joey makes that point right away on track one, the baddest. I can take 5 years off because my shit is timeless. Quite the boast. But I think the fans will be showing up for this one regardless. And a lot of anticipation for it, for not just that length of wait, which is pretty atypical for rappers in their prime, but also because of the direct connection to his debut critically acclaimed mixtape 1999, which came out 10 years ago. You're positioning this comeback album as the direct sequel to your most celebrated music, putting a lot of hype and pressure on yourself to your fans. And, I think it's an interesting album that I like a lot of things about, but doesn't quite have the banger characteristics, the takeaway thumpers that I've had from all the other Joey albums, one way or another. I think it's much more into that storytelling bars Joey that 1999 was honestly most famous for. So I guess in that sense, it makes sense as a follow up, but none of these songs at this point have entered into my favorite Joey songs. And I just saw all those favorite Joey songs live at his show. Be curious to see what songs he takes out of that set list to add in songs from 2000 that are brand new, obviously, TBD. But yeah, I think it's kind of interesting because he's also still not that young, that old. He's 27, 5 year break, and he's still only 27. Again, he came up when he was so young, so he can afford to take time and do his thing, I suppose.
Yeah, I think this is a incredibly like smooth album. I think there's a lot of like you said, really great storytelling on this. Like a song like Eulogy really stands out to me as like one of his like best storytelling moments. I think there's a couple moments that I just found to be total duds. I think the last one, Written in the Stars,
Mm.
not so great, especially after Survivor's Guilt, which
Yeah.
is another one of those like great storytelling and
Yeah,
just like Joey totally taking you on a journey type song. So it felt like you maybe should have, I don't know, just ended after that in a sense.
right.
But I was still really enjoying the experience with this. It felt like callback to like some of his like hip hop roots or what initially made him
Yeah,
fall in love and want to do this. So I appreciate the love letter, I guess. But I agree. I don't think there's any like clear bangers on this.
right. Yeah, I mean, to that point, Static Selecta is all over this. Static Selecta really helped
Mm,
shape the sound of early Joey Badass. Also, was his first tour DJ, you know. So you got a lot of static beats here. I think at times those work really great. You know, in the beginning you have "Make Me Feel." Those kick drums really stand out. But just in general, Static Selecta is one of the most prominent active producers that can bring you that like throwback dusty boom bap. But the transition between "Make Me Feel" into "Where I Belong," I think is really seamless and done really well.
mm,
And "Where I Belong" is probably my favorite of those like style of songs on this. And there's a few. Um, Survivor's Guilt, though, I think is from a storytelling perspective the clear highlight, and kind of foolishly, like you said, he follows it up with another song where it's like you just can't make that impact again. But Survivor's Guilt is like a really somber, very sad story
mhm.
about Capital Steez, which he hasn't really made a song about in some time. Of course, Steez killed himself 10 years ago. Steez, the founder of Joey Badass, you know? And then next thing you know, Steez is gone and Joey's the leader of Pro Era. It's quite the storied history. And, you know, that Steez posthumous album never did come out, but still obviously nods and love for him all over the place from everyone Beast Coast for the most part. So that song, though, it feels like quite the coda, I think, for Joey regarding Steez, and kind of need to happen because if you're going to make the follow up to 1999, you kind of have to acknowledge one of these big pieces of early Joey's career that hasn't been with him for such a long time at this point. So yeah, I think that not a song I necessarily want to run back due to just the you know
Heaviness of the content.
downer nature of it by design, but it's quite well done, and I think it's definitely probably a song that he was, felt really fulfilled in making too, given where he's been
Mhm.
at for so long.
Yeah, I agree. I think it was important for him to talk about, but not a song that you probably find yourself going back to a whole lot. A song that I really liked a lot, at least in terms of just like the energy of it, is kind of comes right after two of the ones you talked about, which is brand new 911. That
Hmm.
like jazzy hip hop feel that he brings to it, and just like his playfulness on the track were really like I think what drew me in, and he just glides over that dude. He's so smooth on that track. It's pretty great.
Yeah, that one's pretty cool too because you have West Side Gun, obviously the
Yeah,
guest there, all the boo boo boos,
yeah,
Griselda, but also a sequel song in a sense because Joey had a very celebrated feature a few years back on the West Side Gun album, the song 327 with those two and Tyler. So cool to see Joey bring Gun back here. Um, Larry June, I thought made a nice impression on One of Us,
Mhm.
perhaps even stealing the song. The Jid song, Wanna Be Loved, Joey's rapping there, then Jid's rapping there. They both sound fine, but that's another song that, like, if they made a banger together, it would be so crazy, you know?
Yeah,
But that's just
yeah.
not the kind of song it was.
I was when I saw Jid on the track, I was hoping it'd be a little bit more like want to run that back, but definitely didn't catch me. But I definitely think they both do a great job asserting
Yeah.
themselves as great rappers in it. What'd you think of Welcome Back with Chris Brown and Capella Gray?
Yeah, kind of weird that Chris Brown's even there because
Yeah.
Capella Gray could have done all that. Capella Gray's opening up for Joey right now on the 1999-2000 tour. Don't know why Chris Brown's there. I wonder if that was a Columbia Records requirement. Who knows? But I don't know. It's just kind of weird because, like, I think it's either that song or the song or the song after "Show Me." I forget. But like Joey, I don't know. Joey kind of gives you some misogyny in those like sex lyrics
Mm,
quite quickly, and I don't need to hear that next to Chris Brown, who we don't have to
yeah.
get into. It's like I don't know. That stuff's kind of a miss, and Joey is a bit prone to kind of saying off color things online and stuff like that. So maybe he just genuinely wanted to work with Chris Brown. I don't know, but yeah, I don't know. Those weren't too good. I think in terms of like non traditional rapidy ass songs, there's no Devastated here. There's no like blatant like melodic, more pop rap styled song here.
Mhm.
We don't have one of those. You do have Cruise Control though, which I think is like the closest to something like that because Joey does sing the hook on there. You know, Mike will kind of bring you a beat that's not like a static selected beat. And then one of the more memorable outros on this list, you have Nas talking about Joey. Of course, the album starts off with Diddy
Mhm.
talking about Joey, bringing back Who Shot You as we proceed to give you what you need. I did in general, I did kind of enjoy a lot of these outros, especially the one on Survivor Skill where someone was talking about meeting Steez for the first time. But yeah, I mean, he got Nas and Diddy to
Yeah.
like genuinely like talk about him in a positive light, you know?
Great look. Great look. You're a big Joey fan. Obviously, you went and saw him live. Would you say that you're uh, satisfied with this album? Disappointed? Like, where are you at?
Yeah, it's tough, man, because he makes such amazing bangers 10 years going, you know, and I just like some people, then some of the real 1999 hits, you know, listen to Kaluuya and Hard Knock all the time. You know, I'm not necessarily one of those guys. I like listening to Survival Tactics all the time. Which shout out Steez, you know, it's like fucking bangers. And lest we forget, when I saw him live, Survival Tactics got the biggest pop of all the 1999 songs he played. You know, I don't know if any of these songs are gonna make people pop. You know,
Yeah.
Where I Belong, people were bobbing their heads when he played it the day it came out, which happened to be the day I saw him. And I think some of these songs will get there too. But like, you know, there's no paper trails on this. There's no Christ conscious on this. So it's not what he's going for, clearly, and that's okay. But like, for me, it's just not exactly what I would have wanted.
Yeah, I definitely was not expecting this to be what we got, but I think even when he's not delivering those bangers, he's still delivering quality, which is a sign of a great artist. So, shout out to Joey. I think definitely give it a listen. Let's move forward to rock, though, or I guess rock. It's we've been talking about Jack White a lot, man. Like, feels like Joey and Lil Uzi were like, it's been quite a while since we got music from them. Jack White, dog, just pumping it out. Like he's like three albums, two in 1 year. Oh man, I love it though because Jack White is still one of the premier rock artists of our time. And we've had Boarding House Reach, we've had Fear of the Dawn, and now Entering Heaven Alive. So, so going into this, I think the first thing you notice is that this is the first album he's put out in a while without some sort of like blue on the cover, and so I was like,
Hmm,
this looks a little different. And right from the get go, this is a much more toned down
yeah,
album. Did that work for you, Dave?
right. Well, you mentioned we just had Fear of the Dawn. That was literally in April. That
Yeah.
was 3.5 months ago. So he truly is cranking them out this far into his career. More power to him. And he honestly said this. He talked about these two albums with these two release dates many, many months before Fear the Dawn came out, and he never moved off these
Yes.
dates. He hit both these dates right on target. Good for him. Yeah, you know, I did enjoy this one. I thought Entering Heaven Live. I thought the I don't know how to say it, almost like more traditional, like throwback style of rock he was bringing us here.
Mhm.
I don't know what genre you put it on, but like for a second, I got almost like a '70s vibe. I was like, that's
Oh
not
yeah.
really hit. That's not his jam. He doesn't do that. But
Yeah.
that's my favorite
Just
type of rock music. So to get that from him, I was like, oh shit, no, this is more interesting to me. You know, like I think the first song was A Trip from You to Me.
mhm.
The You have really noticeable keys, but the guitar on that is just like, you know, that's kind of a '70s song to me. I thought that was awesome.
Yeah, I think if you're gonna like put your thumb on it, it's definitely that like Neil Young, like the softer side of Zeppelin type feel, like the
Yeah.
beginning of Stairway to Heaven or beginning of Ramble On. Like that's kind of the feel he's going for here. And I think he absolutely crushed it. And I found this to be probably the best Jack White album we've talked about in the last couple of
Yeah.
years. With the other ones, he's really like going for it. He's going for more electric. He's kind of just letting these songs just go in whatever direction his heart desires. But this is so much more focused and so much more thought out. The fact that he recorded Entering Heaven Alive with Fear of the Dawn at the same time and was planning to release them all at once initially, like I can't imagine what that album experience would have been like. Like it's so night and day. Um, I think this is a really, really strong showing from him. And, you know, you jump around and you get something different all over. Like, probably one of my favorite tracks on here was obviously I think the middle I've got you surrounded with my love.
Mm,
That's like the bridge between Fear of the Dawn and this album. Those I think that could have been on the last one. But then like just a few tracks later, A Tree on Fire from Within, he doesn't sing until like the last half of it, and it's
mm,
just this like
mhm.
really beautiful buildup in terms of like this piano turning, then the drums kind of come like chiming in, and then the guitar kind of just starts really like pushing it forward. Then he starts singing, and it's like really great. I thought that was really awesome. And there's like some clear, I would say Neil Young feel to this, but also at times like Vampire Weekend, like especially the way the piano sounds at times, like almost a little bit like early
Hmm.
Vampire Weekend type feel. Just really, really impressed with this. I didn't expect him to go in this direction because we haven't gotten a lot of acoustic Jack White recently. This is more of like early Jack White when he was doing so many different projects and really just more of that like Nashville boy. And this, what we've gotten recently has just been so electric and so like elevated in terms
Yeah,
of like
modern.
productions. Yeah, so toned down, but it's beautiful.
Yeah, I mean, on the was it the third track, "Help Me Along,"
Mhm.
there's some tambourines going there. It's like, oh wow, yeah, that's a far cry from Boarding House Reach.
Yeah,
Full stop.
yeah, and on that, I mean, the last track alone is like maybe the folksiest song he's ever made, "Taking Me Back Gently." But it's like a pure folk song, but it's like not music I would typically listen to, but in context of the album, just feels so genuine and so
Mhm.
interesting to think about, like why he wanted to go full acoustic, like swing jazz band, like pretty fun stuff. So, another highlight for me was A Madman from Manhattan. Really just
Yeah.
loved the like storytelling in that, and it feels almost kind of like I can't remember what the name of that band is, but like Sex and Candy, Marcy's Playground, like almost like Marcy's Playground type feel to it in a sense, like that early '90s band. So, really, just a pleasure to listen to this album. Any other tracks you wanted to shout out?
No, you got it there.
Yeah.
With Madman from Manhattan, I like that one. Yeah, I agree. This is, I think, the best thing we've talked about of his three solo albums we've gotten here. So, um, I'm curious what Jack White fans, like hardcore Jack White fans, think of this one because this is not the hardest he's ever been, you know. So
Mhm.
I wonder if that factors in. But I personally liked it quite a bit.
Well, that's gonna wrap us up for music. But as always, check out our Nostalgia Best of 2022 playlist on Spotify, where we'll have tracks from all of these artists. But Dave, you mentioned the Russos earlier, so let's talk about the Russos and their newest movie, The Gray Man, starring Ryan Gosling, Chris Evans, Anna de Armas. Uh, yeah, it's here, and
That's
this
right.
thing is propulsive. It is intense. It's a lot of action.
Expensive.
Very expensive. Uh, did you like The Gray Man? I think is the
I
place to start.
I did like The Gray Man. I had a great time with The Gray Man. I thought it was a lot of fun. Great to be back with Ryan Gosling. It's hard to believe, but this is his first movie since First Man from Damien Chazelle, a movie that came out in 2018. Gosling took some time off, and he's kind of a cool choice for the more stoic spy character we all know so well.
Mhm.
It's a movie with plenty of flaws, but I really enjoyed it. I think the stuff that works is really effective, and I think it's just fun, And it's funny to see so many other famous people too beyond Gosling, Anna Armas, and Evans because in various kinds of roles you have Regis Page from
Mhm.
Bridgerton, you have uh, uh, Billy Bob
But-
Thornton,
Yep.
you have Julia Butters of Once Upon a
Yeah.
Time in Hollywood fame. This
Yeah.
might be your most significant role since that movie. Obviously, she's still quite young. Jessica Henwick in a very thankless role. Um, there's star power everywhere, which is always fun. Yeah, and I think at the end of the day, like the Gray Man takes a lot of things from the spy genre, that spy action genre, action film in general genre. It takes a lot of things that we've seen before, and we've seen done in a better way, usually too. It takes a lot of stuff. It's playing the hits in a certain sense,
Sure.
but I think because of like the gloss and the star power here, I think it's still a really fun time.
Yeah, it's just fun seeing Gosling and Chris Evans kind of going after each other in a way. I just
Mm.
found their whole dynamic really fun, and Chris Evans kind of sticking with this Knives Out type role. It
Yeah.
plays it really in a fun way. I don't know if I'd say it's a great performance, but it's at least fun.
Yeah, in a sense, he actually is given less to do than you would think because for a lot of the movie, he's kind of just back at HQ barking orders to his
Yeah,
assassins and his teams that get killed by Gosling. Um, but yeah, I think it's fun, even if he's like a complete cartoon. Like it's fun. It's fun to see Evans doing that. And I was thinking about that. I was like, oh, Evans is playing off type again after Knives Out went so well. Then I thought about it more. I was like, actually, isn't Chris Evans as Captain America the one that's off type? Because if
so
you think
far.
about like before that, like Not Another Teen Movie and Fantastic Four, the originals, this was actually his thing beforehand, right? And Captain America is where he like switched up what he does. And
Yes,
that's his most famous shit. So obviously people think of that first. But in reality, I think if you add up all his significant roles, I think this is actually more in line with the kind of performer he is.
yeah, well, you even think about like Scott Pilgrim versus the World. Like
Yes,
he just plays
exactly.
that dick in that movie too. So yeah, great point, and he does it so well. I think he's just like he's so overly handsome. Like I don't even really know how to describe, it, but he's just
Yeah.
like too good looking. So he has to kind of be a dick, or it's like unbelievable that, and that's why Captain America fit him so well. Is like he's that perfect, pristine image that
Yeah.
they want America to have. But yeah, you know who actually I think stole part of the movie for me is an actor I wasn't even aware of, but Danush, who played Lone Wolf.
Yes.
When he shows up in this movie, and he is this formidable, unbeatable assassin
Yeah.
that Darmus and Gosling aren't able to stop. I really thought the movie picked up from there because I was like, oh, this actually feels like potentially this movie's going in a direction I don't think it's going to go in. And while I don't know if I like love the way that that all gets resolved. I really just thought his presence in the movie was great, and I actually kind of liked how his character ends up having more agency in the
Yeah.
movie than it seemed because it seemed like he was just kind of like this unbeatable foe, and then it
Right.
becomes like this person who is actually a person underneath all this. So I
Yeah.
could see him and Darmus teaming up in whatever sequel comes from this.
Totally. So I agree with that. I think one of the issues with the movie is they don't introduce Danush fast enough. Danush is a very famous,
Yeah.
successful Indian film star, and he gets introduced, has that one moment where he wins, right? And then
Mhm.
they basically the next thing he does is tell the audience, foreshadow that this is a guy with some kind of principles despite being a killer. Oh, you have kids here, or you
Yeah.
have a woman, however he puts it. And then when he fights on Armus later, he's not gonna fucking kill her. And I feel like if they had give us a little more time with that character, with the lone wolf, I think those moments would have hit better. But because I had just met him, the fact that he like remarked that they have a kid there, like immediately stood out to me as a flag of foreshadowing. I was like, that's a red herring if ever I saw one.
Hmm.
Um, that being said, we don't see Danush because we spend a lot of other time with these other big set pieces. I
Yeah.
thought the early one in Bangkok, I think it was, where
Hmm.
when Gosling, Spectre Six, not yet Rogue, that one, I think lighting wise, very reminiscent of John Wick movies. I
Yep.
think that one's pretty thrilling. And then I think the clear standout set piece would be the next big one, which is in Prague, Vienna, the one where Gosling is handcuffed to
Yeah.
the wall,
Prague.
Prague, and all of Chris Evans's assassin teams are going after him. They're being engaged with the SWAT team, the local police, and it's just like three fronted war in the middle of Prague. And Gosling is helpless for a lot of it. I thought that was really well done
Yep.
and really thrilling. And I think those set pieces too make you think of like what would have happened if there was perhaps more talented action filmmakers involved with this movie because
Hmm.
the Russo brothers, uh, very accomplished due to the Avengers movies and Civil War, but like, they're not at the same level as say like Chad Stahelski or
Yeah.
Chris McQuarrie or even Michael Bay. I think if one of those people was involved in one of those set pieces, it could have went down as like an all timer.
I agree. I think those are the two that clearly stand out. I don't know if Ryan Gosling does this intentionally, but I feel like his like very like flat affect in like an action movie with
Yeah.
like something like bright and colorful, like lighting his face up is like how I've just kind of come to think of him in my head a lot of the time. Like I think about like Blade Runner 2049 and
Right.
like that scene where Anna Darmus shows up and or like whatever the billboard, whatever she is.
Yeah, she's like
And
a AI hologram or something.
yeah, and that like lighting, that like pink lighting that like lights up his face, and he's just so flat, like looking at her, is almost exactly what we get in that opening scene. He's just so like business mode. The
Mm,
fireworks are going off, lighting him up. But I really loved the tension in that scene. You know, you have Roger Jean Page who's screaming at him to take this shot from below this like
mhm.
glass floor, which is really I think just like a cool setup. You know, that he's like below, like doing this and then that like fight scene with the Matthew McConaughey lookalike.
Right.
What's the name?
The other Spectre agent, I forget his
Yeah,
name.
yeah. Sierra Fork. Oh, Kellen Mulvey. I just thought that was an awesome fight scene with like the fireworks going off around them, and it really just sets up everything really well. That fight scene in Prague is so wonderful, especially because the whole time you're just like, how the fuck is Gosling getting out of this? Like, there's
Yeah.
no chance. And then when he finally like gets the gun and like gets onto the train, and then that there's that chase scene going on too. I just thought that was fantastic. Another one that stood out to me was the plane fight. You know, where the like Lloyd tells these guys to like turn on him on the plane, and then he's like fighting from the plane. Very what was that Tom Holland movie recently? It was the
Cherry?
one after Spider. No, the one after Spider-Man, where he's like a treasure hunter. I'm forgetting the
Uncharted.
name. Uncharted. Thank you.
Yeah.
That it reminded me a lot of the fight scene from that movie as well, where like the plane is going down, he has to survive. Um, but really like thrilling stuff. And I agree. I think there was some potential like lost in terms of how this could have gone down. Like I guess the movie always kind of had to end with like a Chris Evans versus Gosling showdown, but I
Yeah.
felt like that like parts of that just like fell a little bit flat for me or didn't meet my expectations. Um, but there are just some scenes that totally electrified me.
Yeah. Yeah, so I did enjoy their final fight. Another obvious piece of homage where it goes into a hedge maze, very reminiscent of James Bond and Goldfinger, famously. Uh, and they had that fight, and they're really fucking each other up too. Is
Mhm.
that the moment where Chris Evans does that knife toss, or is that earlier? I
Yeah,
forget.
that knife toss is pretty sick.
The knife
Not gonna
toss
lie.
is sick. That's really well done. And then that's the moment where Jessica Henwick has like her one thing to do. You know,
Yeah.
it's like you
Other
kind of had a
than scream at Lloyd the whole time.
right, like, I had a feeling like that was her, like, coming in to save the day. I was like, Someone's gonna shoot her." Before I
Mhm.
was like, "Oh, it's gonna be Ana Armas," but then like she has to get the kid. It's like, who's gonna be a shooter? It's like obviously it's just kind of like, regardless. Yeah, I enjoyed that. Um, Fun fact too, I did not expect this to happen, but that final set piece where everything goes down, that estate in France, Chantilly. I've been there. I've been to that
Uh,
place. It's like an hour from Paris. I was like, oh my god, they made a movie there. That's fucking crazy. When I went, it wasn't super busy. I wonder if that'll change now. I don't know, but I think actually in terms of other talent too, like the guy who captures Gosling, the passport like hacker dude, that's
mm,
Wagner Mora under some makeup and a wig.
yeah.
Didn't even recognize him. And then the woman who Gosling goes to see, who's like another one of like the retired CIA people, the one he sees in Prague. That's Alfred Witter too. Like all these people in like really small roles. Um,
You get Shea Wiggum for literally like 20 seconds near the end of the movie in the
that's right, the
flashback.
flashbacks.
Crazy.
Yeah. Um, How'd you feel about Reggie John Page as the bad CIA director? Because I thought that was a classic, like Dion Waiters, or not even Dion Waiters, the overacting. You know, it's like a bit. He's really going for it and like hamming it up, but it's like I don't know if he has the presence to stand with someone like Ana Armas who just oozes that. You know, like Reggie John Page, very handsome, very well
Mhm.
liked in Bridgerton, but in this moment, I don't know if he acquitted himself as well, where it's just a bit over the top for me.
Yeah, he's almost like trying too hard to be just this like asshole, and I
Yeah.
almost feel like he would have done better as like a like computer hacker of some sort or like
Right.
support guy who was like helping them. I don't see he just I guess like he's kind of going for like the Chris Evans like move,
Yeah,
right? Where you're
Evans
like,
doesn't have to try at all though to be an
exactly.
asshole.
And that's the thing is he's too nice. Like Evans kind of has this like duplicity to him, but like
Hmm.
Regé Jean Page just is it seems like too nice of a guy. So yeah,
Sure.
thought that was a bit of a miscast, but I just was kind of like glad he got the look. He's obviously a
Yeah.
rising star, and we're gonna see him a lot more. But nice to see him in a big movie like this. What did you think of De Armas? Because I feel like the for being such a high profile actress at this point, she kind of is just in these like support roles like all
Yeah.
the time, and like obviously they have the John Wick spinoff or whatever it is. No, the James Bond
Yes.
spinoff. Yeah, John Wick spinoff
Yes. So she's
coming, but
allegedly starring in a John Wick spin-off film called Ballerina, which I think needs to happen after what we've seen her do in a supporting role in The Gray Man and a complete scene-stealing
yeah,
supporting role in No Time to Die
yep,
last year. She
exactly.
can do this shit. She's great at it, and she has such presence and charisma as a performer in general. So I want to see that. I want to see the bigger responsibility of a movie like that. As far as I know, there hasn't been a lot of movement or updates on it since. Maybe we'll find out soon. Obviously, she's a very in-demand artist. She has a very busy schedule, so who can say? But yeah, I don't think I don't want to say she was wasted in the movie. She's good and she makes an impression when she's around, but she's clearly a supporting character, which she's kind of I think risen past that,
Yeah,
for some time now.
totally. Yeah, I just wanted so much more of her, and I agree. I feel like every scene she's in, she really just steals it. She's a rocket ship at this point in terms of star. Um, I wanted to kind of wrap up this conversation today, just kind of seeing what your temperature is on Gosling at this point, right? I think he's top of mind right now because this felt very familiar. This is Drive.
Sure.
This is Blade Runner 2049. This is even First Man. They're all kind of in the same vein for him here. But then we got the Barbie movie coming out where he's playing
Yeah.
Ken. Like, I don't know how to make sense of that, and I also don't
He
know what
said
to
he did it
expect
for
for
his
that movie.
kids.
And I just, where are you at with him right now? It's been a while.
Yeah, well, like I said, I'm happy he's back 'cause it's been several years. He is a very charismatic performer and he does make a lot of good choices. He has been in some non-traditional star vehicles to this point, right? He's
Hmm.
not an IP guy. This is
No,
the closest thing he's probably ever going to get to something like that, right? Um, until Barbie, I guess. But who knows how like IP Barbie's going to feel from Gerwig and TBD. We don't know. Um, yeah, like I like him. I want to see him do more stuff for sure. Um,
yeah, me too.
it
And
feels like he's getting back in the swing. He took a very clearly intentional break, and then he
mhm.
happened to have that extended by the pandemic. Good for him. Good timing, I guess. But yeah, I think it's time now, right? Because he still got it. I think
Oh yeah,
in a stronger script too, he probably makes an even bigger impression. In the sense, he kind of has to play a stone faced character in this, which he can do very well, as we know.
hmm,
Um, he doesn't really have that many opportunities in this movie to do a lot else besides that one moment where he talks about like his Sisyphus tattoo, the
hmm,
Greek myth. Other than that, it's like it's more or less him just being on the run and trying to live stuff like that.
yeah.
So yeah, I like
I,
to
I
see some
want
more stuff.
I want him to get back into the La La Land or the Nice Guys type of stuff. I want him to be doing like some different stuff where hit that like flat, but so perfectly timed, like he's the straight man, I guess, right? Like
Yeah.
in the Nice Guys, he's the straight man to Crow, and I just think he can do that so well. Like his delivery of like, does this plan involve me being alive? Because if so, we need to get me to a hospital now. A lot of blood, losing a lot of blood here. Like it really had me chuckling near the end of the movie. I thought that was great, and a couple other lines were really funny too. But I just want to see him doing something other than like this like flat person in an action movie just because I think he's got so much more charisma. Maybe the Barbie movie will
Yeah.
let that whistle for me. We'll see.
Yeah. Barbie's his only movie on the calendar right now, so maybe we'll hear some more things soon. But yeah,
Hope
I
so.
mean, The Gray Man, it's now the most expensive movie Netflix has ever made, $200 million, taking that title from Red Notice, I believe, and Six Underground before that. Um, I like it more than those two movies. I think though, if we had combined Michael Bay from Six Underground with The Gray Man, and Marcus McFeely from the Russos writing still, I think we could have made a better film regardless. For the Netflix blockbuster standard, I think it's pretty good. The flaws are okay. Do you think they make a sequel? They set one up. This movie was so expensive. Do they want to go down that road again? Because honestly, this is a movie that would have made fuck ton of money in the box office for Netflix had they wanted to make that kind of money, but they don't. So, what do you think? They make the Gray Man too? The
I
Black Man, the White Man? I don't
I
know.
think we see it. I just I think it'll probably be the Armis driven, right?
That is a good pivot.
It's got to be like her, like you know, exposing or whatever because she knows all these secrets. Feels like it's got to be, but I don't know. Well, I think we get it. Do you?
Yeah. They want to make franchises, right? And
They kind of have to. They need something that
right, Stranger Things is ending, the main
yeah.
version of it anyway. So, and I'm sure we're gonna hear tons of viewer data about how much they watch this, you watch this. So, yeah, I think it's a good as thing as any they have to keep going. Why not?
Yeah, I think it would all depend on who they get to be in the Chris Evans type role too. Like they
Yeah,
need someone that charismatic and that like level. So we'll see.
right.
Maybe Jean Page at that point gets Roger Jean Page gets elevated to be
Yeah,
more like
that's a
that.
good
So
point.
well, we'll see. Anyways, let's move on from Netflix and let's get back into the theater, man. Because I went back to the movies back in person. Saw Nope, Jordan Peele's newest movie. Man, Jordan Peele, just a freaking amazing director. I loved this movie. I can't even hold back. Like I'm giving like an early question because I just want to talk about everything with this
Yeah,
movie. Did you have the same experience? Did you enjoy Nope as much as I did?
I enjoyed Nope a lot. I think it's a really propulsive, entertaining movie. Awesome genre implications that if you're a film fan, there's so many things to recognize and appreciate about what he's doing. But even if you're not, there's just I think a real awesome energy to this movie, largely propelled by Kiki Palmer's uh, movie-winning performance.
Oh yeah.
And Jordan Peele still gives you so much to chew on thematically in this movie. You know, Get Out, Us, now Nope. He is just one of, if not the most interesting American filmmakers working right now and one of, if not the best filmmakers of the 21st century,
Hmm.
2010s on, however you want to put it. He's rising that list, and I think the more movies we make, the more people he makes, the more people start to agree on that point because it's just the body of work he's putting in is just so impressive with how varied it is, and working with Daniel Kaluuya again, obviously from Get Out to now, always cool. Yeah, I liked it a lot. I actually saw it early due to just my own schedule in a screening environment. And my screening room, which was a packed IMAX too, cool. Got to see it in IMAX.
Nice.
Uh,
Shot in IMAX.
yeah, shot in IMAX. People loved it. You were hearing people audibly say nope when stuff happened. People had a blast, and
Yep.
there was clapping and stuff, and big laughs as well. I think that's what's also so great about Nope is that it's thrilling as a sci-fi movie. It has really witty humor. It has really scary moments. It kind of gives you everything. So yeah, I liked it a lot.
Yeah. I think where like my intrigue with the movie started off is right from the very first scene, right? Because you don't even know at this point it's from Monkey Paw Productions, and the first scene you see of the movie is this monkey on this TV set where it seems like something has gone horribly wrong, and the monkey's just kind of like coming down from this obviously elevated state and turns and looks right into the camera and I guess it's a chimpanzee. I should be like more clear. Yeah, but it's very like unsettling and off-putting. And I was like, oh, that must be like just a weird like production company choice for like how they advertise themselves as being of a movie. Because I was like, that's just doesn't seem connected to anything that we know about the movie from what you see in previews. And that coming back around and the like intention of the scene when you get it later and what it's trying to say about the larger story, but just that I think about society in general, I think is really, really interesting. I loved that as like the setup, and it really made me feel like the movie as a whole like it was very well thought out, which I think certain parts of Us, his last movie, kind
Mm,
of fall through, falter in ways and
yeah,
that where it's not as thought out or not as well conceived.
lot mechanics specifically.
But I think the next time you get drawn in is the very next scene where Otis Jr. OJ, played by Kaluuya, has to rush his father to the hospital for just like things falling out of the sky, right? And like
Yeah.
right from that moment, you are just drawn into what's going on up there, right? And I don't know if you noticed yourself in terms of how you were like watching the screen, but I certainly noticed for me. We'll get into spoil this a little bit later, but there's a part in the movie where OJ kind of figures out that looking up isn't necessarily helpful for him. And so he starts
Yeah.
to put his head down more. And I found myself in the first half of the movie putting like looking up towards the top half of the screen more and then putting my head down more as the movie went on. I was like, wow, this is a sign that Peele
Yeah.
has just like this like master idea of like framework and how he wants to make the movie look and how he wants to make you
Right.
feel in the movie, and that ability to like create the tension for you to be physically responding to what's happening, and like that is something he does to a level that I don't think a lot of other directors
Right.
are able to do right now.
It's his first time working with Hoyte van Hoytema, the reclaimed cinematographer who done a lot of work with Nolan, among other people. And I mean, the movie just looks so great. You know, it has that blockbuster quality to it. And if you
Mhm.
think about it, Nope makes sense as a COVID production. This is a movie that largely takes place out in the boonies of LA County, wherever we are outside LA. You know, it's not a lot of people around, but it still has this like huge like vistas, and they look so awesome, you know.
Yeah.
And then, like you said, it's actually brought into the plot of the film,
Mhm.
how the viewing of it works. You know, I hadn't really put that together, but that makes that you don't see that often. I think everyone knows that. Um, you know, I think thematically, it's a movie that definitely requires a lot more to think about. You know, I think Get Out, despite its brilliant, but it's also part of its brilliance that you immediately understand why it's so brilliant. You
Mhm.
understand thematically very quickly what's going on. Um, Nope, it's a bit more. I think requires you got to peel this banana a little bit to really grasp. I think
Yeah.
the comment. And for me, I had to think about it a little bit more because I wasn't really thinking about it as deeply while watching it because the movie's so entertaining and so propulsive and has such awesome forward momentum. You know, I saw some people saying that it has a bit of a slow start. I didn't really feel that though because
Me
I
neither.
was really picking up on it pretty quick. I think part of that again is Kaluuya and Keke have awesome performances that really work well together. Where Keke Palmer's is very extroverted
Mhm.
character and DK is obviously very subdued in contrast, right? But I feel like as soon as they meet the tech guy, what's his name, Brandon Perea, who plays him,
Yeah.
uh,
Angel.
yeah, Angel. Once you get Angel coming in and just like being this a really funny figure, I think, and like
Yeah.
him playing off the two siblings, and once like the movie starts, like the gears start to spin, you understand what's going on in terms of the plot itself, let alone the themes. It's like wow, it's kind of the edge of your seat stuff because I think it's just really thrilling and thematically, then you understand why things go the way they go. Right? I don't think there's like huge plot holes in this movie because like everything the characters do is like perfectly grounded in what they want to achieve, and that's
Yeah.
why they don't just immediately flee the scene and never return. You know, so
Yeah.
I thought that was really well done too.
Yeah, I think the only critique, and I guess we might get into spoilers here. So if you wanted to tune in just to hear general thoughts and now want to tune out, that's fine. Come back. Um, is the ending, and kind of did Peel land the plane in terms of what the point he was trying to get across? Because it seems like a lot of the movie, especially from the flashbacks to the Gordo or the Gordy chimpanzee going,
Yes.
berserk on the crew, is about like the exploitation of nature and how humans use and abuse nature and for their own gain without really thinking about how this may impact nature itself, whether that's climate change, the way the animals are treated or utilized within the film industry or society. And then at the end of the movie, they kill the creature. We don't know if it's an
Mm,
extraterrestrial or some other sort of creature from Earth that we're just not aware of. And um, yeah, it kind of left me feeling a little bit confused as to what Peel was definitely trying to say. I think there's probably,
yeah.
and he's a director that doesn't doesn't spell everything out for you. So I think
Mm,
intentionally he might have done this too, just to like
yeah.
kind of throw you off the scent and try to make your own. conclusion of it. What did you make of it though?
I kind of think I didn't really think of it from the nature side of things, but I think that was what makes the movie so interesting. Is there's a few different ways to interpret it and listen to how
Sure.
people think about it. But I kind of thought the more like cultural, racial implications that he brings into this, right? Obviously,
Hmm.
started with Get Out, continue with Us. Now here, I think it's a bit more like higher level, right? So, like I said, it's not so in your face that you understand it right away. Where in this one, they do a really pronounced job of explaining who this family is. Actually, descended from uh, Murbridge. I forget the first moving image, the first movie in a sense, which was a black man riding a horse,
Edward
a black cowboy.
Muybridge.
Edward Muybridge. They're the descendants of Edward Muybridge, and they have such great pride in that. And yet, they are still, like many minority groups, not having that true seat at the table and having to sell their horses to get by, right? And really struggling to achieve what they want to do. And I really enjoyed how they kind of position this whole thing where it's like, oh, we're going to capture undeniable proof of an alien of some kind. And why are they doing that? They're doing that to get money, man, so they
Yeah.
can
Get on
keep this
Oprah.
business going, to be real ones. That's why they're doing this. It's so real. It's such a
Yeah.
real reason to do something like this. That's why they want to abandon the house, because they don't want to abandon the house. They want to save the house. They want to make the ranch bigger. They want to live. I just was really taken with that. I think another thing, I didn't really catch it myself, but I saw someone say where Keith David, who plays the dad, who I didn't even know he was in the movie. That was probably announced, but to me, I was like, "Oh, Keith David's here. That's awesome. That guy has an amazing voice." Still, um, he literally gets killed by a coin hitting him in the
Mm.
head, a token, if you will.
Mm.
Quickly after
Wow.
this, we meet Stephen Yun, who, as a child actor, was playing the token minority character on a sitcom. And then when we see what happens with Gordy the chimp, Gordy perhaps had a kindred spirit in a certain sense with what he saw in how Stephen Young's character was treated. That's why he didn't kill him. He's killed all the white people, the people in power. It's like that was the stuff that I think I picked it up on. Then when you really make the
Ah.
connections, like I didn't really think of the token myself, but like that, I think that stuff is really makes sense. But then you have other pieces, right? You have the director guy who I think he makes a really charismatic impression in a small role, and the way he's going about this, or his reasons for wanting to shoot this, and then his reasons for sending himself to certain doom.
Mhm.
It's quite different from the reasons that M and OJ have. And then even Stephen Yun. It's like Stephen Yun. I think he kind of presents this like position on like combating your own personal trauma, but in the process, you're kind of like losing your own soul, you know? Like he made
Yeah.
the whole like
Exploiting yourself almost.
Gordy Museum in a certain sense. And later on you have the TMZ guy show up on the
Oh yeah.
motorcycle. And like, there is a bit of a comment on like how people make content in quotes.
Mhm.
So like you said, Peel will not spell it out for you. He won't clarify it later. But
Mhm.
the fact that he can imbue so many of these complex ideas that take some thinking, and they do make sense. It's not like this is just nonsense. Like they do, everything makes sense. You just got to think about it for a second. You have all that in a movie that is also super propelling and well acted and looks amazing.
Yeah.
Like, what more do you want? You know?
Yeah. No, I completely agree. And you talk about like how beautiful this movie is, and like there's so many scenes that just stand out. I think first of all, obviously, as you mentioned, where this ranch is and this valley, and I think it's supposed to be California somewhere, right? I
Yeah, yeah.
believe.
It's L.A. area. They said.
Yeah.
Yeah,
It's unbelievable, just like how they found this location, just how
right.
gorgeous it is. But then you have this house, and I mean, man, one of the scenes that stands out most to me is that nighttime scene
Oh yeah.
where the creature is like he is I guess he's being exploited by Jupe, Stephen Yeun's character. He eats all the people watching, or sucks it up into his body and
Yeah.
starts to eat them,
Oh, he ate him for sure.
and then he drops them onto the house that OJ and M live in, and the blood running down that house with the lightning lighting it up, and also the "I wear my sunglasses at night" slowing down when the magnetic field or the electric field is being taken out.
Mhm.
Man, I mean that is like Peel giving so many homages to like different horror films just in general right there, but I just thought that was like incredibly propulsive, and like the images there are just like stuck in my brain. Another one that I think is like incredibly like stuck is like when uh OJ figures out like that if you don't look it in the eye or in its mouth or whatever it is, that it will kind of like leave you alone or like go away.
Right.
And that scene of like Kaluuya's face so close to the camera looking, and then you just see it behind him like hovering.
Yeah.
Oh man, like it just burned into my brain. So amazing.
Totally. I think they do a really good job too of setting up this alien,
Oh yeah.
this beast. You know, you start seeing it like through the clouds, like in the shadows and stuff. And then when they
Flashes.
put you to that point where like that cloud hasn't moved, you're like, that's a fake cloud. It's like holy shit. It's like a terrifying realization, right? And then
And
by
it
the end, it's just like it's just this huge beast, and like when it's like openly in the open, trying to
yeah.
eat stuff and chase people down and stuff. It's and then the very ending, right, where it's kind of like opening itself up and becoming this kind of unintelligible form, right? It's like
Yeah.
also has
Ribbons.
a beauty and
Yeah.
natural beauty to it as well. Yeah, ribbons, right? So
Really
uh,
loved it.
totally. Yeah, actually, did you know that Jesse Plemons turned down a role in this movie? Uh, for Killers of the Flower Moon, Scorsese, obviously tough to fault him for such a
Yeah.
choice. I would assume that was probably the Stephen Yeun role. I don't really
Probably.
don't know where else he would fit in the film. Maybe he was the comic figure.
Maybe. I don't
Jesse
think he
Plemons
would have
does
worked
have
as
a
well.
bit of humor to him, maybe a different kind of humor though. I thought they did a really good job
Yeah.
with Angel. Um, I love the scene where they fail to get the shots because of the praying mantis. That just awesome way to have true audience tension and
Totally.
fear for your characters. You know.
Yeah, and it's so funny because I thought for a second this movie was going to go in a really lame direction, which I should have given Peel so much more credit. But that scene when they don't really know about the creature yet, and OJ sees the little gray men in the barn, I was like, oh
Mm,
man, is this really going to be just like a traditional like Martian movie? And I
yeah.
was like, I don't know. And then it turns out to be something completely different.
Yeah.
When OJ's like, I don't think that's a ship, or he's like, it hasn't moved, and he's like, uh, that's not a ship. Like I'm
Yeah.
just like, oh
Nope.
man, like what is this? It's just so well conceived, and like you said, the way it works on so many different levels. I just like I don't know a director that is able to do what Peel does to the effectiveness that just makes you think like this, right? Like we don't typically have conversations one about horror movies to this level, but I think just about movies in general that have this many layers of meaning. And then I think we haven't even really gotten into it, but like Kiki Palmer in this movie
Hmm.
just completely steals the show. And Kaluuya's character OJ is a bit more reserved, a bit more internal, and I think he plays the part really well, and their dynamic is great. But Palmer gets to do a lot of the like heavy lifting on screen, and she just absolutely crushes it.
Totally. This is her biggest blockbuster role ever. She's been famous, been an actor publicly for a long time, 10 plus years, but this is like a true coming out party in a certain sense. It's weird to say that because she's so famous and so well liked and makes big moments in culture all the time. Sorry to this man, she just did it again on the press tour where she didn't know who was in the X Files,
Yeah.
and Kaluuya and Yun did, and she was like, and who are they or something. It's like she just basically did sorry to this man a second time. She's just and genuinely too. Like she's so great. But yeah, this role really gives her a chance to show off just her charisma, and then later on, like her action chops too. At the end, she does a fucking Akira slide on the motorcycle. It's awesome.
Amazing. Yeah, and she starts off, she enters the movie with this like anxious ball of energy kind of coming in and having to like give the spiel about who like why they're there and the safety of the horse and everything for the movie. And that monologue, she just is so electric, and you're just like,
Hmm.
"Oh man, like we're on one now." But Man, she delivers some of the funniest moments in this movie. That when the cinematographer shows up, Michael Wincott, and he's talking about how he's going to capture the image, and he's like, "I brought a non like electrical camera or whatever," and she's
Yes.
like, "What did I say? He was going to bring a non-electric camera." They start dapping each other up. I burst out laughing. I thought that was hysterical. I've been thinking about that moment too since I saw it because it just was so perfectly timed. And Kaluuya and her have such a connection that moment. You really buy them as like
Yeah,
siblings. It's really wonderful.
totally. Yeah, this movie had a strong box office, but it's noticeably below Us, and I think that's to be expected. Us coming off Get Out, Nope coming off Us, which is well liked but more polarizing, right? That
Mhm.
being said, this is still the best start for an original studio film since a movie called Us in 2019. So hard to be too critical of how this movie's doing.
Yeah,
And
I think it's also sorry before you go on. I just want to say, Us
yeah,
had maybe the greatest like movie trailer ever. Like that and like the first Black Panther. Those like the
yes,
music matched with like the scenes that they chose were like
yeah, the
got people
dun
really hyped.
dun dun dun,
Yeah, the
yeah,
slowed down five on it, amazing. Yeah. Sorry, what was your second point there?
no, yeah, I think curious to see how well this movie legs out because I would like to think word of mouth would be strong because I do think it's pretty entertaining. Doesn't have an A cinema score; it's in the B's, so that's like it's not really a horror movie, so I don't know how to couch a reading of a score like that. But yeah, I mean, regardless, I think Jordan Peele clearly 3 for 3. Um, no word on what his next movie is, as far as we can tell. But he does a lot of producing too, which we've talked about
Yeah.
before. He's a bit more up and down in the stuff he
Mhm.
produces, but so are many people. Um, yeah, I mean, I think the big takeaway with Nope is it's not what you think it is,
Yeah.
and it's not easy to predict. But once you understand what it is that you're watching, it's like wow, it's like there's really a lot to stew on, and
Yeah.
yeah, it's great.
Yeah, I think the big takeaway for me, at least in terms of Peele's career, is just how with Get Out, it felt like he was going to be a very pure horror voice, which he might be, but there was a lot more Spielberg influence in this. You know, this is
Mm,
very Jaws or Close
yes,
Encounters type feeling than it is something like from John Carpenter, I'd say. And
yeah,
so when you think about that, it's like maybe we're seeing him like start to expand the kind of director he can be and the kind of stories that we're going to get from him, or at least like how the movies will be. Because, like you said, this isn't a pure horror movie; it's more thrilling in a lot of ways. There's definitely some scary moments, and I think that just opens the door for even more potential for Peel, which is hard to like say I
yeah,
expected going in because we already kind of thought the sky was the limit for him. But
right.
man, just awesome to see. So
Keep making original movies. I'm sure IP gets thrown in his face constantly, but he
I'm sure.
it seems to be pretty good at saying no. So let's hope
Well,
that
he
continues.
was doing the what was it, the Twilight Zone stuff. So
That's right.
yeah, these guys IP stuff. But anyways, what else? What are we gonna be talking about next week? Let's wrap up there.
Yeah, next week. So I got some interesting stuff. Maggie Rogers comeback, Industry season 2 on HBO, Paper Girls debut after a long time in the can on Amazon. Fox Searchlight movie called Not Okay coming out on Hulu. Supposed to be pretty good. And then an album from a little person called Beyonce that we'll talk
Oh,
about too. Yeah.
someone new to talk about. That's great. Hit that subscribe on youtube.com/nostalgia pod. Go to our Twitter at nostalgia pod and go to our link tree to follow the podcast any other way you want to. And of course, go to Spotify and follow our Nostalgia Best of 2022 to hear all the music that we like. We'll see you next week. Peace out.